Hola con todos, muy buenas tardes desde la ciudad de Bogotá. El día de hoy tenemos una maravillosa oportunidad con Duke University y el Center for International Development. Como pueden ver, aquí estamos acompañados de Danny Hamrick, Dean Starelli y David Herrera. Vamos a tener varios temas en esta presentación, pero empezaremos con cómo escribir un buen ensayo de admisión para universidades nivel posgrado en Estados Unidos. Luego Danny hablará sobre el programa MIDP, que es enfocado en estudios de desarrollo internacional. Y finalmente tenemos a David Herrera, que es un beneficiario de Colfuturo del programa Crédito Beca, y él podrá contestar las preguntas un poquito más puntuales de lo que ustedes estén pues pensando ahorita que están considerando aplicar el Crédito Beca o cualquier duda en general. Entonces la presentación será en inglés, ya con las preguntas si quisieran hacerlas en español las pueden ir escribiendo en el chat con mucho gusto. Mientras vamos en la presentación, siéntanse libres de poner ahí sus comentarios que al final responderemos todas. Y pues listo, empecemos pues con Dean Starelli. I have already introduced everyone, so feel free to begin your presentation and we'll go on from there.
All right, thank you for the chance to pitch in here tonight. We're going to talk about writing an effective statement of purpose. There are many documents, many deliverables that can be part of the application process, and I think this one is one of the most mysterious. Next slide. So what is a statement of purpose? Well, the name is pretty good. Statement of purpose helps you to helps an organization get to know you, your hopes, your interest, your purpose. Why are you applying? What are your goals and your dreams? A statement of purpose is not a place to review your accomplishments. A statement of purpose isn't a narrative of your resume. People already have your resume, and now they want to know you. Organizations also want to see how well you can write and how well you can organize an argument. So a statement of purpose is a bit of a writing sample, and it's a way to introduce yourself. Now, there are three classic mistakes. The first is simply restating the facts that are in your resume. You're wasting an opportunity to say something else about yourself. Another mistake is failing to tell the organization anything new about yourself. Organizations are good at looking at resumes. They can figure out what that says. What an organization wants to know if they're asking for a statement of purpose is something else. They want to know what's driving you. Where do you see yourself going? Another classic mistake is not answering the primary question, what is your purpose, until the end of the essay. So US audiences in particular are very demanding and focused on productivity. They want to know in the first line, in the first paragraph, what is this all about? Many statements of purpose that I read wander to the main point, and it's not until the last page, the last paragraph, where the writer answers the question. Instead, you need to use a pattern that I call bottom line up front. Start from the very beginning saying, hello, for most of my adult life, I've been interested in X. Applying to your organization, I'm applying to your school so that I can become even better at doing X. Once you've named that bottom line up front in the introduction, then you can organize the rest of the statement around the past, the present, and the future. So the first paragraph or two can be, I first became interested in this purpose when I was an undergrad and I was studying a certain class, or I met a certain person, or I did some certain activities. Today, I am pursuing that purpose by the job or the training you're in now. And in the future, I hope to work with you or join your program. And in particular, I want to get better at these three skills or this body of knowledge. So start with your bottom line up front, and then talk about that purpose in terms of your past, present, and future. Don't just rehearse your resume. And that's it for statement of purpose.
Thanks, Dean. So the bottom line up front, or bluff approach to writing, it's very useful for statements of purpose, but it's also very common in writings throughout public policy, or you'll find in international development. And so what I'm going to do now is chat a little bit about one graduate program that has an agreement or a partnership with CoFuturo, where you can learn this skill not only for statements of purpose, but other types of writing. And it is the Master of International Development Policy program at the Sanford School of Public Policy at Duke University. So you'll see in the picture here in the background, this is Duke University. It's situated in the state of North Carolina, I think about the halfway point between New York and Miami, more or less. And we have a saying at the Sanford School, and the MIDP has adopted it well, of achieve outrageous ambition. And that's what you really can do in a public policy school. You can have these outrageous goals and beliefs and desires to make the world a better place by focusing on something that everyone else has said it can't be solved. And then you can gain skills and knowledge and connections to achieve these goals and ambitions. And so we really dare our students to dream about how they can help make the world a better place. So a little bit about our program, the Master of International Development Policy, which we call MIDP for short. It is a mid-career master's program. So we seek people who have 5 or more years of work experience, who are really looking to gain new skills and new knowledge to further build their career, or are looking to shift away from their current career into one that's more focused on policy design and policy analysis. We have several diverse cohorts. So our cohorts are pretty small. They're generally around 30 to 35 incoming students, or sometimes we call them fellows since they're all mid-career every year. And they come from a variety of different parts of the world and different academic and professional backgrounds. So our current newest group of MIDP students who started last week in classes, there are 30 students from 21 different countries. Our alumni network spans over 105 different countries. And we have some students who are working in global health policy, others in humanitarian assistance, some in peace and conflict resolution. Others, like David, are working in questions of public financial management or applied economics, development economics. So they really are approaching development from a wide variety of angles and views and areas of expertise. They also have a wide array of previous backgrounds. Many have worked for their governments for many years before coming to our program. Others have worked in civil society, and some have worked as doctors or lawyers or teachers and are seeking to make a career change. But they all have in common this commitment to development work and to improving the lives of those in the countries and communities that they serve. One of the key benefits of our program is it's a very flexible curriculum, and I'll talk about that more on the next slide. But we have a handful of required courses that all of our students will take. And then from beyond that, you will work with different faculty members that you've met and staff members to really design the courses around the best that Duke has to offer to make a tailored program that's unique to you and meets your learning objectives and goals. Speaking of our faculty are world-renowned. At the MIDP, we have 2 different types of faculty. We have what are known as tenure-track professors, and those are faculty members who, upon finishing their graduate studies, went straight into universities to teach and to do research, and they are seen as the thought leaders in their respective areas across the globe. For example, the current director of graduate program, Sarah Bermeo, is an expert on climate change and migration, as well as foreign aid. And the director of the Center for International Development, where MIDP is housed, our director, Eddie Molesky, is an expert in political risk analysis and political economy, specifically in Southeast Asia. The second type of faculty member that we have are known as professors of the practice. And these faculty members have had very long and successful careers in leading international organizations like the World Bank, And now, as their second career, they're coming back to the university to teach the next generation of practitioners based on their experiences, their tools, and their knowledge. So you really are getting a nice mix of practitioner-based expertise as well as research-based expertise blended into the same program. Finally, because we are a smaller program, only admitting about 30 to 35 students per year, we have a high degree of personalized services that we're able to offer. For example, Dean Storelli, who just gave the presentation about a strong statement of purpose, teaches classes on writing and presenting to policy audiences in the English language to students, but he will also hold one-on-one office hours. So you can bring your paper, your master's project, whatever you're working in, and he will help you workshop it to make sure that you are making your point as clearly and as convincingly as possible. We have similar types of services with our career office, where you would work with our director of global careers to make sure that you find an internship that aligns with your interest and that you structure your cover letter and CVs in such a way that it's appealing to international development audiences. So as I said, we are very flexible in our course structure. We have a 2-year program, traditional program, which consists of 48 credit hours spread over 4 semesters or 2 years. And in this option, you will take required classes your first semester in policy analysis, empirical analysis or statistics, and economic foundations, or an advanced economics class if you place out of that, as well as an elective and a writing practicum and a career preparation practicum. Your second semester, you will take complete electives, so you will work with faculty and staff to select courses that align with your interests, as well as a presentation practicum with Dean Storelli. Then in the summer, you will do an internship, and you'll come back to finish up your final required course, which is another economics course, as well as begin preparing your master's project or your master's paper, which is the culminating paper, and take a few more courses that you select from the best that Duke has to offer. And then in the final semester, you'll write your master's project with the help of a faculty advisor and another 1 or 2 faculty readers, as well as take any remaining coursework. We also have an accelerated 1-year program that's 30 credits. It can be completed in 2 semesters in a summer or over 3 semesters, which would make it about 18 months. The admissions requirements are slightly higher for it, but you do not have as many required courses or as many courses in general, and you also do not have to do the 48 credit or the required summer internship. So you can see here a little bit of how it's different, but largely the focus is still the same in terms of courses in international development and in public policy. The previous slide, as you could see, there were a bunch of different international or elective topics, and to take those or to help you with those, we have different areas of focus that a student can select. We have an area of focus on social policy, which looks at education, global health, poverty reduction. We have one in applied economics, which looks at fiscal markets, trade, competitiveness, public finance, taxation, all of these different economic approaches to development. We have a development management and governance track, which looks at things such as policy design, monitoring and evaluation, capacity building, peace and conflict resolution on how to enact development and positive change in fragile or conflict or immediately post-conflict areas, environmental management, looking at sustainability from a development standpoint, and innovation and social entrepreneurship, where we seek out to find creative solutions to ongoing development and policy challenges. So a little bit about our application process. Our application opens in early August, and we have a priority deadline of January 5th for submitting your application. After that, we offer rolling admission as space allows up until April 15th. And then it's on a case-by-case basis, depending on whether or not we believe we can process everything and get a visa before classes start. You will complete the application online and pay an $80 application fee, which you will also pay online. And you will upload copies of your CV or resume, English language scores, where we will accept 4 different tests: IELTS, TOEFL, Duolingo, and Pearson, and you can see the minimum scores here. Each of the, or whichever test you use should be no older than 2 years since you took it. We ask for copies of transcripts for any university where you studied and received a grade after high school, so any of your undergraduate and postgraduate work. The statement of purpose essay, which Dean had talked to you about, as well as 3 letters of recommendation for both academic and professional contacts of yours to speak to your commitment to development and your abilities in the classroom and in the work field. And finally, an optional video where you will tell us what development means to you. This video is about 1 minute long, and it really does help the admissions committee get a better idea of who you are as an applicant and what your goals are and how you fit into the program. So while it is optional, I strongly advise everyone to do it if at all possible, because it will make your application stronger and stand out. So what will happen is all the applications that are received before the January 5th deadline will be read and reviewed by our admissions committee. And all of the applicants that are admitted into our program that are offered a spot, before you are notified of your decision, your application will go to a second committee, a scholarship committee, for review for awards. If you are a Co-Futuro recipient, you are guaranteed a minimum of a 30% scholarship. In some cases, it can be higher. And you will also be reviewed for other scholarships and internal funding sources that we have at the school. For example, we have recently established or been given a gift by a donor for what's known as the Ava Staten Fellowship, which is just for students from Latin America and the Caribbean who are interested in engaging in policy work in that region. These scholarships, both at the MIDP level and with Ava Staten and others, are generally not all-inclusive, but they will help cover a portion, in some cases, a significant portion of tuition, reducing the financial demands and the financial expectations from Co-Futuro funding or others to fees and living expenses and whatever part of the tuition is left. These awards are, as I said, we start giving them out after the January 5th deadline. And the amount of funds we have vary from year to year. So it's always important to try to apply before January 5th so you have access to the maximum amount of scholarship funding that we have available. And then you also have time to finish applications for Co-Futuro or other places as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to one of our recent MIDP alums or graduates, David Herrera, who was also a Co-Futuro recipient. So he can talk a little bit about his experience both with Co-Futuro and with MIDP.
Okay. Entonces, Bianca me había mencionado que puede hacer esto en español, ¿verdad?
Sí, claro que sí, David.
Okay.
Y un pequeño paréntesis, a todos nuestros participantes en este momento es para que ustedes vayan mandando sus preguntas. Ahora David nos va a contar de su experiencia como beneficiario de Colfuturo y como graduado de Duke University. Entonces, cualquier pregunta que tengan, ya sea del essay, de las aplicaciones, las oportunidades financieras, vayan escribiéndolas y más tarde empezaremos a responderlas. Continúa, David. Gracias.
Gracias, Bianca. Gracias, Dean, por lo que han mencionado. Nada, para mí es un completo agrado contarles sobre mi historia en Duke y el apoyo que recibí por parte de Colfuturo. En realidad es el momento en que uno decide hacer sus sueños realidad y pasa así. En mi caso, yo puedo asegurar que sin duda fue el mejor año de mi vida. Yo hice el programa de un año que mencionaba Dane, que tenía alrededor de 30 créditos. Es exigente, pero al mismo tiempo, que es lo que uno busca, digamos, en un máster internacional, que suba tu nivel de skills profesionales, pero también tus actitudes, tus soft skills, puedan mejorar ese tipo de detalles técnicos y de habilidades blandas al mismo tiempo. Y eso lo logra Duke de una manera, y Sanford en particular, de una manera muy especial, porque uno llega a Durham, a Estados Unidos, ¿no? Digamos, a estas universidades grandes, gigantescas, pero en realidad Sanford te acoge, te ayuda, te busca una persona que te ayuda, que te acomodes, todo el tiempo están pendientes de ti de entrada. Una vez entras a las clases tienes muchas cosas personalizadas, por lo que el máster no tiene un gran número de personas, pero sí tiene una gran diversidad frente a las nacionalidades, el background académico, el tipo de experiencias de trabajos en los que han participado los participantes de esos, del máster. El caso de Dean, por ejemplo, es particularmente fabuloso porque te ayuda a escribir mejor en inglés, pero uno piensa muchas veces que no, yo escribo bien en español. No, realmente cuando uno se da cuenta, ¿no? que tienes la asesoría de alguien que ha escrito, que se dedica a editar estos libros, estos documentos de policy, tú dices, bueno, ahora sí estoy transmitiendo mejor mi mensaje. Un poquito sobre Durham. Durham puede sonar un poquito desconocido, ¿no? Como dónde queda Carolina del Norte en Estados Unidos, yo siempre en Nueva York, Miami, ¿no? Pero resulta que Durham es un lugar tan bonito en términos de que hay tantas cosas diversas, tiene una vida cultural vibrante a pesar de ser una ciudad relativamente pequeña. Tiene Duke, que está reconocido en todo Carolina del Norte, en todo Estados Unidos, y es una gran parte de la ciudad además. Y cuando Dane mostraba cuando empezó el cover de su presentación y mostraba la imagen de Duke, no está editada, no tiene Photoshop, nada de ese estilo, en realidad sí es la universidad, es así de bonita y así de bonita la van a ver la mayor parte del año. Y cuando tiene menos flores igual se ve bonita porque no hace tanto frío como en otras partes de Estados Unidos. Solo tengo recuerdos muy positivos sobre Duke, sobre su calidad académica, sobre el acompañamiento. El tema con el futuro fue muy fácil, lo del 30%, el mínimo 30% del beneficio que se recibe por el convenio que tiene Duke y Sanford y con el futuro. Es muy fácil, en realidad Dane se encarga de todo este tema con la tesorería de la universidad, entonces es algo que va casi straightforward. Entonces ya, esas son mis apreciaciones generales y muy contento de estar aquí con ustedes.
Muchísimas gracias, David. Pues tenemos algunas preguntitas. Tenemos una de Santiago. Let me switch to English. Santiago is asking about the IELTS score, but he typed that in before you went over it. Pero como recordatorio, Santiago, el mínimo de IELTS es un 7. And the second part of his question is he's asking about the requirements to apply. He's saying if they have less than 3 years of work experience, if they could still be a strong candidate. So can you guys maybe tell us a little bit about who would be a strong candidate for these programs?
Sure, I can take that one. So we really look for mid-career professionals for our program, which we define as having 5 or more years of work experience. And we find that's important, and our faculty on our admissions committee are very passionate about that because they really want that deep knowledge and that deep experience that you get after graduating from your bachelor's to bring to the classroom. So you're learning from each other and not just from the faculty member or from the readings. That being said, Santiago, it's not a clear delineation. So if you don't have exactly 5 years, you're out. And if you do have 5 years, you're in. We look at everyone holistically. So if you currently have 3 years, by the time you get to Stanford, I'm assuming you're going to be working. So it's actually going to be 4. And if this 4 is highly relevant to international development and you have really strong grades, I still think that you would be fairly competitive. If you have questions like that about a specific case or your case, please feel free to send me an email. I believe that Bianca is going to share that with you. Either she might have already done it. And we can set up a time for a Zoom call to speak one-on-one about your particular situation and whether you would be a strong candidate for MIDP. Or we have another program at the Stanford School for Early Career Professionals called the MPP that might align better, and I can chat with you about that one at that time as well. But the convenio currently is with MIDP, but we can definitely explore both. So I'm happy to chat about that.
Thank you so much. And then we have another question about the approximate cost of the 2-year program. I know it depends a lot on if they get the Colfuturo, Crédito Beca, and then the scholarship that you were mentioning. But if we can get an estimate cost of the program, that would be great. And that is Daniela asking the question.
Right. Hi, Daniela. That's a great question. I'm glad you're thinking about that already. Duke releases estimated cost in the early fall. So we should have the estimated cost for next academic year, hopefully in the next few weeks. And then in the spring, they get approved by the Board of Visitors and they become finalized. And they're generally pretty close with the fall estimates. The current cost for this academic year is a little over $74,000 total. That includes both tuition, fees, insurance, and housing, because it is a large number. It does assume a few things. It assumes that the student is coming alone. They're not bringing their family. If you bring your family, that cost will go up. And that you are going to live in a student lifestyle on a student budget. So not going to take weekend trips down to Miami to go shopping or things of that nature. Consider possibly getting a roommate. So that is the amount of money per year before any scholarships are added from the CoFuturo, from Ava Staten, from other places. One thing I should mention though about our scholarships, anything that you would get from MIDP or from the Sanford School, it's renewable your second year of study, provided that you maintain good academic standing. So if you're making good grades, going to classes, then you'll be able to get that amount the second year. So you'll be able to expect that same discount the second year. And hopefully in a couple of weeks, we'll be able to tell you more accurately about what the picture looks like in terms of costs for next year.
Great, thank you so much. We have a question about the IELTS again. This is from Luis. So they scored a 7.5, but they're mentioning that it expires in December. If it's just a few months or a few weeks expired, what would the case be there? Would they have to take another English proficiency test, or is there kind of like a grace period for a couple of weeks?
I feel like if it's that close, you could probably apply with using that IELTS score. If there were any questions, I would reach out to you on behalf of the admissions committee, or Dean would reach out to you on behalf of the admissions committee, and we would chat more. But I do know these English tests are very expensive and it's very difficult to find time to schedule them as well as go to them. So yes, so we will try to work with you as much as possible if you're just a couple of weeks out of the 2-year window.
Wonderful. And then we do have another question. This is from Angelica. She's asking about GRE requirements. Do you have any standardized testing requirements? She's asking this because her work experience is more into the private sector than the public sector. So yeah, any standardized testing requirements for this program?
Hi, Angelica. No, we do not require the GRE, and we actually recommend that you don't send the score. That I think it's more helpful to not send than to send it. It really very rarely has a positive impact on an application, and sometimes it can raise more flags, and it's not a really good measure from some of the data that I've read about it, for public policy studies at least. So that is definitely fine. For your second question, it looked like you had also said you had worked in the NGO civil society area a little bit as well. That is great. We have people who come to us from all different backgrounds. We have people who have worked in the government sector, like David. We have others who have worked for local NGOs or have started their NGOs or worked for international NGOs for several years and are wanting to come to better understand how the policy-making process and how to more effectively engage with governments. And then we have some that are working in the private sector who are wanting to do the same thing, who are really wanting to better understand how policies are made and how good policies are made so they can lobby for these type of policies to help improve the private sector performance in their home country. And I don't know if Dean or David want to weigh in on this one, as you both know the student population very well, as in addition to me.
I can jump in a little bit talking about the value of a policy degree back in the business world. And I think this shows the close ties. I have a friend who's the brand manager for Activision, a Johnson & Johnson product, the contacts. And he tells me whenever he wants to get something done, he goes out and hires a bunch of MBAs. So they know how to run projects. But whenever he wants help figuring out what should be done, he likes to hire public policy people. He was a public policy, he has a master's degree in public policy. He says, because what you learn in public policy is how to think strategically. So what really is the problem? What are the causes of the causes? Or as our friend Natalia David would say, is the why of the why, one of our faculty. Stakeholders in some ways is another word for clients. And in today's business world, you have to think not just about the people who buy your product, but the people you impact through making your product and your employees. So there's the critical thinking skills that you develop in a business career are also the skills that you will develop in a good public policy program, and they're skills that you can take back out with you into any field.
Complementando un poco lo que mencionaban Dean y Dane, yo diría que uno de los características más fuertes que tiene el MITP Program, de hecho, es contar con diversas profesiones y diversos backgrounds que permiten enriquecer las discusiones. Por ejemplo, en mi caso, yo he sido todo el tiempo, digamos, en mi vida profesional, los últimos 8 años he trabajado en temas económicos, financieros públicos. Pero cuando, por ejemplo, tenía una compañera de la India que había trabajado en NGOs toda su vida en temas de transferencias monetarias, yo veía las cosas de una manera y ella me complementaba diciendo, no, estas cosas yo no las veo así, y en realidad eso permitía llegar a soluciones, creo yo, más eficientes, mejor pensadas, que se puedan admitir más por la comunidad, por los gremios, por las empresas, y creo que eso es una de las fortalezas más grandes que tiene el MITP por su diversidad en términos de países, de regiones, de backgrounds, de profesiones. Entonces yo no lo vería ni incluso como un componente en contra, sino a favor de tu aplicación.
Excelente, muchísimas gracias, David. And we have one more question. Por cierto, si es que quieren hacer más preguntas, adelante, pueden ir escribiéndolas y yo las voy moderando. We have one question from Daniela. She's asking about the program for early graduates that you mentioned earlier. She said that she graduated in 2016, only has 3 years of experience. If she can apply to both programs, the early graduate program and then the other program that we were mentioning.
Yes. So the answer to that question, Daniela, is yes, you could apply to both. I would recommend emailing me first so that I can try to work with you so that you don't have to reproduce everything twice. I think that would just add to your workload, and you are a very busy person. And we can also chat a little bit about what the work experience requirement looks like, because a lot of people, when they hear that, they assume they have to be working in a professional setting for 5 years. And that's not always the case. If you are doing volunteer work full time, that would count towards our work requirement. Some people are doing things with the military or starting their own company or doing an internship. Those would count, provided that it was done full time, 30 to 35 hours or more a week. So our idea of full-time work experience is very broad. So I think it would be helpful to reach out. We can schedule a time to chat, look at your CV, and then if you see that one program works better than the other, we can talk about the specific requirements for that. If we see that you're sort of on the line and could possibly fit into either or, we can talk about a way to have both groups look at your application. But we work very closely with one another, so that would not be a big issue.
Thank you so much. Pues sí, como dice Danny, por favor escríbanle. Yo ahorita en el chat les puse el correo de él, pero igual se los voy a decir. Es danny.hamrick, hamrick@duke.edu. Cualquier preguntita que ustedes tengan, le pueden escribir. Si es que tienen dudas después de este webinar sobre las admisiones, aplicaciones, el ensayo, con mucho gusto pueden escribir, agendar una reunión con él y con todo el gusto, aquí nuestras maravillosas personas de Duke University podrán contestar sus preguntas.
And I would add one other thing. I'm actually going to be in Bogota the very first week of October for different meetings and different opportunities, but I'm going to have a lot of time to meet with prospective students. So if you prefer just to meet me face to face while I'm there, just again, send me an email and we will find a day and a time. And I look forward to chatting with people in person as well. That's the best way. That's actually how David and I first met, was getting a really good cup of coffee and chatting.
Excelente, sí. Dani va a estar aquí en Bogotá, entonces cualquier cosita le pueden mandar un correo y como él dice, con mucho gusto, pues pueden tener una reunión presencial y pues mucho mejor. O sea, pueden ahí contestar todas sus preguntas y pues ya armar una conexión, una relación con esta universidad tan maravillosa. So Danny, Dean, David, thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. Everyone that's watching, we will be sending out the recording. We will also be sending out everyone's contact information just in case you have any additional questions. So I hope everyone has a wonderful day and we will see you at the next webinar. Hope you guys register. Make sure to go to colfuturo.org and register for the other webinars that we have coming up this month. Que todos tengan una linda tarde y esperamos verlos muy pronto en nuestro próximo webinar de Colfuturo.